Abandoned and alone. The twin suns of Nexus 9 cast an eerie purple glow across the desolate landscape as Zara stumbled through the thick, knee-high vegetation. Her four-fingered hand clutched at her side, violet blood seeping between her digits from a fresh wound. The young Nexian's large, luminous eyes darted nervously from side to side, searching for any sign of movement in the hostile alien wilderness. It had been 3 solar cycles since the great evacuation ships had lifted off, leaving Zara behind. She was deemed too weak, too sickly to make the arduous journey to their new home. The elders had made their decision, and in the chaotic rush to escape the dying planet, no one had noticed or cared about the fate of one frail adolescent. Zara's legs trembled with exhaustion as she pushed forward. The lush, carnivorous flora of Nexus 9 seemed to reach for her with every step, hungry tendrils seeking to ensnare their prey. In the distance, the ominous howls of pack hunters echoed across the barren plains. Zara knew she needed to find shelter soon, or she would become just another meal for the voracious wildlife. As the younger sun began to dip below the horizon, Zara spotted a rocky outcropping jutting from the otherwise flat terrain. With renewed determination, she quickened her pace, ignoring the burning pain in her side. The outcropping grew larger as she approached, revealing a small opening at its base, a cave that promised at least temporary safety from the dangers outside. Zara practically fell into the cave entrance, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She dragged herself deeper into the darkness, her bioluminescent skin providing a faint bluish glow that barely illuminated her surroundings. The cave was mercifully empty, save for some moss-like growth clinging to the damp walls. As the adrenaline began to fade, the full weight of Zara's situation crashed down upon her. She was alone, injured, and stranded on a planet that was slowly becoming uninhabitable. Tears welled up in her large, almond-shaped eyes, leaving glistening trails down her pale blue cheeks. "Why?" she whispered to the empty cave. "Why did they leave me behind?" But Zara knew the answer. She had always been different, weaker than the others of her kind. A genetic anomaly had left her more susceptible to illness, her immune system struggling to cope with even minor infections. In a society that valued strength and resilience above all else, Zara had always been an outsider. As night fell, the temperature inside the cave dropped rapidly. Zara huddled against the cold stone, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. She focused on regulating her breathing, slowing her heart rate to conserve energy, a survival technique all Nexians learned from a young age. In the darkness, Zara's mind wandered to memories of her childhood. She remembered the disappointment in her parents' eyes when the genetic tests had revealed her condition, the whispers and stares from other children as she struggled to keep up during physical training, the pitying looks from the elders as they discussed her future, or lack thereof. A distant roar snapped Zara back to the present. Something large was moving outside, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. Zara held her breath, pressing herself against the cave wall, praying that whatever it was would pass by without noticing her presence. Minutes ticked by like hours as Zara remained motionless, every muscle in her body tense. Finally, the footsteps faded into the distance, and she allowed herself to relax slightly. But the close call had driven home the precariousness of her situation. She couldn't stay in this cave forever. Sooner or later, she would need to venture out for food and water. As exhaustion overtook her, Zara's thoughts turned to the stars above. Somewhere out there, her people were starting a new life on a distant world. A world she would never see. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, quickly turning into a sob. She had always dreamed of exploring the galaxy, of seeing new worlds and meeting new species. Now it seemed she would die alone on the very planet she had longed to escape. But as sleep began to claim her, a small spark of defiance flickered in Zara's heart. She had survived this long, hadn't she? Against all odds, she had made it through the first days of abandonment. Perhaps there was still hope. With that tiny flame of determination burning in her chest, Zara drifted into an uneasy sleep. Outside, the savage night of Nexus 9 raged on, unaware that its newest inhabitant had made a silent vow to survive, no matter the cost. Little did Zara know that far above the turbulent atmosphere of Nexus 9, events were unfolding that would soon change her fate forever. A small ship, unlike anything in the Nexian fleet, was hurtling through space on a collision course with the abandoned planet. Its human crew, unaware of the challenges that awaited them, were about to crash land into Zora's world, setting in motion a series of events that would test the limits of both species' resilience and compassion. As Zara slept fitfully in her cave, the stars above seemed to twinkle with the promise of an uncertain but potentially extraordinary future. Unexpected arrival. Captain Alina Reyes gripped the controls of the SS Horizon with white-knuckled intensity, her dark eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching planet below. Alarms blared throughout the small exploration vessel as it plummeted through the turbulent atmosphere of Nexus 9. "Martinez, give me something," Elena shouted over the cacophony of warning signals. Lieutenant Carlos Martinez, the ship's engineer, furiously worked at his console, his fingers flying over holographic displays. "No good, Captain. The EMP from that solar flare fry our main systems. We're going down hard." Dr. Aisha Kapoor, the team's xenobiologist, strapped herself into her seat, her face a mask of determination. "If we survive this, the data we've collected on this system will be groundbreaking." Elena allowed herself a grim smile. Leave it to Aisha to think about scientific discovery while they were plummeting to their potential doom. "Let's focus on the surviving part first, shall we? Everyone, brace for impact." The horizon screamed through the lower atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Elena fought with the controls, trying to level their descent as the ground rushed up to meet them. At the last moment, she managed to engage the emergency thrusters, slowing their fall just enough to turn certain death into a chance at survival. The ship slammed into the surface of Nexus 9 with bone-jarring force, skidding across the barren plain in a shower of sparks and debris. It finally came to rest at the base of a rocky outcropping, the same formation that housed Zora's cave just a short distance away. For a long moment, silence reigned inside the battered vessel. Then, with a groan, Elena unstrapped herself from the pilot's seat. "Sound off. Everyone okay?" "Still breathing, Captain," Martins replied, rubbing his head where it had struck his console. "I'm all right," Aisha added, already unclipping her harness. "Though I think I left my stomach somewhere in the upper atmosphere." "All right, let's assess the damage," Elena ordered, switching seamlessly into survival mode. "Martinez, see what you can do about getting our systems back online. Aisha, inventory our supplies. I'll check the hull integrity and see what we're dealing with outside." As her crew set about their tasks, Elena made her way to the airlock. The ship's atmospheric sensors indicated that the air outside was breathable, if a bit thin. She cycled through the airlock and stepped out onto the alien world. The landscape that greeted her was both beautiful and foreboding. Twin suns hung low on the horizon, bathing everything in a surreal purple light. Strange, carnivorous-looking plants dotted the landscape, their tendrils swaying gently in the breeze. In the distance, Elena could make out the silhouettes of massive creatures moving across the plain. "Well," she muttered to herself, "we're definitely not in Kansas anymore." A movement in her peripheral vision caught Elena's attention. She turned, her hand instinctively moving to the pistol at her hip. There, peering out from behind a nearby rock, was a face unlike any she had ever seen. Zara had been jolted awake by the horizon's crash landing. Curiosity overcoming her fear, she had ventured to the mouth of her cave to investigate. Now, she found herself face to face with a creature from another world. For a long moment, human and Nexian stared at each other in silent wonder. Elena slowly raised her hands, palms out, in a universal gesture of peace. "Hello," she said softly, knowing the alien couldn't understand her, but hoping her tone would convey her non-hostile intent. "We mean you no harm." Zara tilted her head, her large eyes blinking rapidly as she processed this new development. The creature before her was unlike anything she had ever seen or imagined. It stood on two legs, like a Nexian, but its skin was a warm brown color, so different from her own pale blue. Its eyes were small and round, set in a face that seemed to convey a mix of caution and fascination. Slowly, hesitantly, Zara emerged from her hiding place. She raised her own four-fingered hand in a mimicry of Elena's gesture. Hello, she attempted, the unfamiliar word feeling strange on her tongue. Elena's eyes widened in surprise. You can speak. Before Zara could respond, a loud roar echoed across the plain. Both Elena and Zara turned to see a massive, six-legged predator charging towards them, its razor-sharp teeth gleaming in the fading sunlight. Back to the ship. Now, Elena shouted, drawing her weapon. To her amazement, the alien girl seemed to understand, sprinting alongside her towards the horizon. They reached the airlock just as the creature closed in. Elena shoved Zara inside and slammed her hand on the emergency close button. The doors hissed shut mere seconds before the predator slammed into them, causing the entire ship to shudder. Inside, Martinez and Aisha stared in shock at the alien girl, who now stood trembling in their midst. Elena leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. Well, she said with a shaky laugh, I think our mission just got a lot more interesting. Zara looked around at the strange interior of the ship, her mind reeling from the rapid turn of events. Just hours ago, she had been alone and hopeless. Now she found herself surrounded by beings from another world, beings who had saved her life without hesitation. As the human crew gathered around her, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern, Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. Whatever happened next, she was no longer alone in facing the dangers of Nexus 9. Outside, the predator continued to slam against the hull, its roars of frustration echoing through the ship. But inside, a fragile alliance was beginning to form, one that would change the fate of both species forever. Elena stepped forward, offering a tentative smile to their unexpected guest. I'm Elena, she said, pointing to herself. What's your name? Zara hesitated for a moment, then replied in her halting approximation of the human language. Zara, she managed, her voice soft but clear. And with that simple exchange, the adventure truly began. Forging an alliance. The interior of the SS Horizon hummed with tension as the human crew and their unexpected alien guests sized each other up. Captain Elena Reyes, ever the diplomat, took charge of the situation. Aisha, she said, turning to the xenobiologist, see what you can learn from our new friend. Martinez, status report on the ship's systems. As Martinez hurried off to check the damaged components, Dr. Aisha Kapoor approached Zara with barely contained excitement. Hello, Zara, she said slowly, pointing to herself. I'm Aisha. Can you understand me? Zara nodded hesitantly. Some words, learning fast. Aisha's eyes widened. Fascinating. Your species must have incredible linguistic adaptation capabilities. She reached for her tablet, fingers flying across the screen as she made notes. Elena cleared her throat, reminding Aisha that this wasn't just a scientific study. Zara, she said gently, can you tell us what happened here? Where are your people? Zara's luminous eyes dimmed, and she wrapped her arms around herself. In halting words and gestures, she conveyed the story of her abandonment. The evacuating ships, the dying planet, her genetic weakness that had left her behind. As Zara's tale unfolded, the humans exchanged glances of shock and sympathy. Elena felt a surge of anger at the callousness of Zara's people, leaving a child to die alone on a hostile world. You're safe now, Elena assured her, placing a comforting hand on Zora's shoulder. We'll figure this out together. Martinez's voice crackled over the intercom, interrupting the moment. Captain, you need to see this. In the engine room, Martinez pointed to a holographic display of the ship's systems. The good news is life support and basic functions are operational. The bad news, Our main drive is fried. Without replacement parts, we're not getting off this rock. Elena's mind raced, considering their options. What about the emergency beacon? Martinez shook his head. The EMP that took out our systems also damaged our long-range communications. We can send out a distress signal, but it won't reach beyond this system. And there's no guarantee anyone would pick it up even if it did, Elena murmured. She turned to Zara, who had followed them into the engine room. Zara, are there any of your people's structures left? Anywhere we might find technology or supplies? Zara's face lit up with understanding. Yes, old city, not far. Many things left behind. A plan began to form in Elena's mind. All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll mount an expedition to this abandoned city. Look for anything we can use to repair the ship or boost our signal. Zara, you'll guide us. Aisha spoke up, her voice tinged with concern. Captain, are you sure it's wise to trust our survival to, well, to someone we've just met? Elena met Zara's gaze, seeing the determination and gratitude in those alien eyes. We're all in this together now. If we're going to survive, we need to trust each other. As the humans prepared for the journey, gathering supplies and weapons, Zara felt a mix of emotions she couldn't. Forging an alliance. The interior of the SS Horizon hummed with tension as the human crew and their unexpected alien guest sized each other up. Captain Elena Reyes, ever the diplomat, took charge of the situation. Aisha, she said, turning to the xenobiologist, see what you can learn from our new friend. Martinez, status report on the ship's systems. As Martinez hurried off to check the damaged components, Dr. Aisha Kapoor approached Zara with barely contained excitement. Hello, Zara, she said slowly, pointing to herself. I'm Aisha. Can you understand me? Zara nodded hesitantly. Some words, learning fast. Aisha's eyes widened. Fascinating. Your species must have incredible linguistic adaptation capabilities. She reached for her tablet, fingers flying across the screen as she made notes. Elena cleared her throat, reminding Aisha that this wasn't just a scientific study. Zara, she said gently, can you tell us what happened here? Where are your people? Zara's luminous eyes dimmed, and she wrapped her arms around herself. In halting words and gestures, she conveyed the story of her abandonment. The evacuating ships, the dying planet, her genetic weakness that had left her behind. As Zara's tale unfolded, the humans exchanged glances of shock and sympathy. Elena felt a surge of anger at the callousness of Zara's people, leaving a child to die alone on a hostile world. You're safe now, Elena assured her, placing a comforting hand on Zara's shoulder. We'll figure this out together. Martinez's voice crackled over the intercom, interrupting the moment. Captain, you need to see this. In the engine room, Martins pointed to a holographic display of the ship's systems. The good news is life support and basic functions are operational. The bad news, our main drive is fried. Without replacement parts, we're not getting off this rock. Elena's mind raced, considering their options. What about the emergency beacon? Martinez shook his head. The EMP that took out our systems also damaged our long-range communications. We can send out a distress signal, but it won't reach beyond this system. And there's no guarantee anyone would pick it up even if it did, Elena murmured. She turned to Zara, who had followed them into the engine room. Zara, are there any of your people's structures left? Anywhere we might find technology or supplies? Zara's face lit up with understanding. Yes, old city, not far. Many things left behind. A plan began to form in Elena's mind. All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll mount an expedition to this abandoned city. Look for anything we can use to repair the ship or boost our signal. Zara, you'll guide us. Aisha spoke up, her voice tinged with concern. Captain, are you sure it's wise to trust our survival to, well, to someone we've just met? Elena met Zara's gaze, seeing the determination and gratitude in those alien eyes. We're all in this together now. If we're going to survive, we need to trust each other. As the humans prepared for the journey, gathering supplies and weapons, Zara felt a mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. Fear, certainly. The journey to the old city would be perilous, but also a growing sense of purpose and belonging. These strange creatures from another world had shown her more kindness in a few hours than her own people had in years. The twin suns of Nexus 9 were high in the sky when the small group set out across the barren landscape. Alina took point, her weapon at the ready, while Martinez brought up the rear. Aisha walked beside Zara, peppering her with questions about her world and her species. As they trudged through the alien terrain, Zara's linguistic abilities improved rapidly. By midday, she was able to communicate in complete, if simple, sentences. She told them of the great cataclysm that had begun to render Nexus 9 uninhabitable, shifting magnetic poles, increasing solar radiation, and rapidly changing weather patterns. "My people, they say planet dying," Zara explained. "No time to save all. Weak ones, left behind." Alina's jaw clenched at the callousness of it all. "Well, where we come from, we don't leave people behind, especially not children." As the day wore on, the dangers of Nexus 9 became increasingly apparent. Massive carnivorous plants snapped at them as they passed, their venomous tendrils barely missing the group. Strange, unseen creatures howled in the distance, their cries sending shivers down everyone's spines. Race against time. The first rays of Nexus 9's twin suns had barely crested the horizon when Captain Alina Reyes roused her team. The abandoned Nexian city loomed before them, its once gleaming towers now dull and lifeless under the alien sky. As the group prepared to enter the city, an air of tense anticipation settled over them. "Remember," Alina addressed her team, "we're looking for anything that could help us repair the ship or boost our distress signal. Stay alert, stay together, and if anyone sees anything unusual, sing out immediately." Zara led the way, her bioluminescent skin providing a soft glow in the shadows of the empty streets. The young Nexian steps were hesitant, memories of her former life flashing through her mind with each familiar sight. "There," she said, pointing to a massive structure at the city's center. "That building, it housed our greatest technologies. If anything can help, it will be there." As they approached the towering edifice, Dr. Aisha Kapoor couldn't contain her scientific curiosity. "The architectural complexity is astounding," she marveled. "The materials used in construction, I've never seen anything like them." Martinez, ever practical, was more concerned with their immediate needs. "Let's hope their tech is as impressive as their buildings. We're not exactly swimming in options here." The group entered the vast atrium of the central building, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. Dust motes danced in the shafts of purple sunlight that streamed through the high windows. Everywhere they looked, there were signs of a hasty departure: overturned furniture, scattered documents, and abandoned personal belongings. "Zara," Alina said softly, noting the alien girl's distress, "are you all right?" Zara nodded, her large eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Yes, it's just seeing it like this. Empty. It was once so full of life." Alina squeezed Zora's shoulder reassuringly. "We'll make it right. Now, where do you think we should start looking?" Guided by Zora's memories, the team made their way deeper into the complex. They passed through laboratories filled with strange, dormant machinery and libraries housing data crystals beyond their comprehension. In one room, they found a cache of portable energy cells, which Martinez quickly appropriated for the ship. But it was in a sealed chamber deep within the building that they made their most significant discovery. As Zora placed her hand on a biometric scanner, the doors hissed open, revealing a sight that took their breath away. "By all that's holy," Aisha whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Before them stood a massive device, its core pulsing with a soft, blue light. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, showing diagrams and readings in the complex Nexian script. "What is it?" Elena asked, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and hope. Zara's face lit up with recognition. It's a matter synthesizer. My people were working on it before the evacuation. It can create any material or component, given the right instructions and energy. Martins let out a low whistle. If this thing works, we could fabricate the parts we need to repair the ship. We might actually have a shot at getting off this rock. As the team set to work, with Zara translating the Nexian instructions and Martinez figuring out how to interface their technology with the alien device, Elena felt a glimmer of hope. But that hope was short-lived. A deep, resonating hum began to fill the air, growing in intensity with each passing moment. The ground beneath their feet started to tremble, and in the distance, they could hear the sound of crumbling stone. "What's happening?" Elena demanded, steadying herself against a console. Zara's face had gone pale, her bioluminescence flickering with fear. "The city's automated systems, they must have detected our presence and reactivated. But without proper maintenance for so long." She didn't need to finish the thought. The building around them groaned, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. "We need to get out of here now," Elena shouted. "Martinez, grab what you can from that synthesizer. Everyone else, move." As they raced through the collapsing building, the full scale of their predicament became clear. It wasn't just this structure that was failing. The entire city was coming apart at the seams. Ancient, overtaxed systems were overloading, causing chain reactions of destruction throughout the metropolis. They burst out onto the street, only to be confronted by a scene of utter chaos. The ground buckled and heaved, opening up fissures that spewed forth noxious gases. Buildings toppled like dominoes, sending up massive clouds of dust and debris. "Back to the ship," Elena ordered, coughing as she pulled her shirt over her mouth. "Move, move, move." As they ran, dodging falling debris and leaping over widening cracks in the earth, Elena realized with growing horror that their problems were far from over. The devastation wasn't confined to the city. The entire region seemed to be affected. In the distance, she could see massive plumes of ash and smoke rising from newly formed volcanic vents. "Captain," Martinez gasped as they ran, "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if this keeps up, we won't have a planet to escape from, let alone a ship to escape in." Elena's mind raced. They had the parts they needed, thanks to the matter synthesizer, but with the planet seemingly tearing itself apart around them, time was not on their side. They needed to repair the ship, and fast. As they crested a rise, the welcome sight of the SS horizon came into view, but Elena's relief was short-lived. A massive chasm had opened up between them and their only means of escape, and it was widening by the second. "We'll never make it across," Aisha cried, her voice tinged with despair. But Zara, her eyes fixed on the ship, set her jaw with determination. "Yes, we will," she said, her voice stronger and more confident than they had ever heard it. "I know a way, but you must trust me completely." Elena looked at the young alien, seeing not the frail, abandoned child they had found, but a determined survivor willing to risk everything to save her new friends. In that moment, Elena made her decision. "Lead the way, Zora," she said. "We're with you." As Zara began to guide them along a perilous path towards the ship, using her knowledge of the unstable terrain to their advantage, Elena realized that their greatest asset had been with them all along. In this race against time, with the very planet rebelling against them, their fate rested in the hands of the one being this world had tried to cast aside. The next few hours would determine not just their survival, but potentially the fate of two species. For if they succeeded, they would be carrying with them knowledge and technology that could reshape the future of both humanity and the Nexians. But first, they had to reach the ship, repair it, and escape a dying world that seemed determined to take them with it. As they pressed on, the twin suns of Nexus 9 hung low and angry in the sky, as if bearing witness to the planet's violent rebirth. The true test of their newfound alliance was about to begin. A new beginning. The chasm yawned before them, a gaping wound in the dying planet's surface. On the other side, tantalizingly close yet impossibly far, sat the SS Horizon. Their only hope of escape. Captain Alina Reyes looked to Zara, the young Nexian who had become their unlikely savior. "Okay, Zara," Alina said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "What's your plan?" Zara's bioluminescent skin pulsed with determination. "The underground transit systems," she explained quickly. "They run deep beneath the fractures. If we can reach a station, we can use the tunnels to cross under the chasm." Martinez hefted the bag containing the precious components from the matter synthesizer. "And you're sure these tunnels are still intact?" "No," Zora admitted, "but it's our only chance." With the ground continuing to shake beneath their feet and the air growing thicker with toxic gases, they had no choice but to trust in Zora's knowledge. Following her lead, they descended into the bowels of the dying city through a half-collapsed transit station. The underground was a maze of twisted metal and crumbling concrete. Zora's bioluminescence and the flashlights from the humans' equipment cast eerie shadows as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Every few minutes, tremors would send cascades of debris raining down on them. "There," Zora pointed ahead. "That tunnel should lead us under the chasm." As they entered the tunnel, the sounds of the planet's death throes became muffled, replaced by the echo of their footsteps and ragged breathing. They were halfway across when a violent quake shook the tunnel, more powerful than any before. A new beginning. The chasm yawned before them, a gaping wound in the dying planet's surface. On the other side, tantalizingly close yet impossibly far, sat the SS Horizon. Their only hope of escape. Captain Alina Reyes looked to Zara, the young Nexian who would become their unlikely savior. "Okay, Zora," Alina said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "What's your plan?" Zara's bioluminescent skin pulsed with determination. "The underground transit systems," she explained quickly. "They run deep beneath the fractures. If we can reach a station, we can use the tunnels to cross under the chasm." Martinez hefted the bag containing the precious components from the matter synthesizer. "And you're sure these tunnels are still intact?" "No," Zora admitted, "but it's our only chance." With the ground continuing to shake beneath their feet and the air growing thicker with toxic gases, they had no choice but to trust in Zora's knowledge. Following her lead, they descended into the bowels of the dying city through a half-collapsed transit station. The underground was a maze of twisted metal and crumbling concrete. Zora's bioluminescence and the flashlights from the humans' equipment cast eerie shadows as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Every few minutes, tremors would send cascades of debris raining down on them. "There," Zora pointed ahead. "That tunnel should lead us under the chasm." As they entered the tunnel, the sounds of the planet's death throes became muffled, replaced by the echo of their footsteps and ragged breathing. They were halfway across when a violent quake shook the tunnel, more powerful than any before. "Run," Elena shouted as cracks spider webbed across the ceiling. They sprinted through the collapsing passage, dodging falling chunks of concrete and leaping over widening fissures in the floor. Just as they reached the far side, the tunnel behind them gave way with a deafening roar. Gasping for breath, they emerged into the open air once more. The SS Horizon stood before them, a beacon of hope amid the devastation. "Martinez, get those repairs started now," Elena ordered as they raced towards the ship. "Aisha, prep for immediate takeoff. Zara, you're with me. We need to get that distress signal boosted." As Martinez set to work with the synthesized components, his hands moving with frantic precision, Alina and Zara made for the communications array. Using the advanced Nexian technology they'd salvaged, they began to amplify their signal. "There," Zara said, her fingers dancing over the alien controls. "That should extend our range exponentially." The ship shuddered as another quake rocked the planet. "Martinez," Alina called over the intercom. "Please tell me we have engine power." "Just about." "There." Martinez's triumphant voice crackled back. Main drive online, Captain. Elena strapped herself into the pilot's seat, with Zara taking the co-pilot position. HFY status. All systems green, the xenobiologist reported. But Captain, the atmospheric disturbances, they're off the charts. This takeoff is going to be rough. Elena's hands tightened on the controls. Everybody hang on. This is going to get interesting. The SS Horizon's engines roared to life, fighting against the planet's increasing gravity as Elena piloted them skyward. The ship bucked and shuddered, alarms blaring as they pushed through layers of turbulent atmosphere. Zara's eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She had dreamed of leaving this world behind, but never like this. As they broke through the clouded layer, the full scale of Nexus 9's transformation became apparent. Entire continents were shifting, oceans boiling away, as the planet entered its final death throes. With a final burst of acceleration, they broke free of the dying world's gravitational pull. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the ship as the violent shaking subsided, replaced by the gentle hum of engines in stable flight. "We made it," Aisha breathed, her voice filled with awe. "We actually made it." But their relief was short-lived. As Elena set a course away from the disintegrating planet, a new alarm sounded. "Multiple contacts," Martinez called out. "Coming in fast." Elena's heart sank as she saw the readings. "Pirates," she growled. "They must have picked up our distress signal." As the pirate ships closed in, weapons hot, it seemed their escape had been for naught. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and in no condition for a fight. But Zara's voice cut through the tension. "Wait. Look." On the long-range sensors, a new set of ships had appeared, larger, more powerful, and bearing markings unlike anything the humans had seen before. "It can't be," Zara whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. The newcomers made short work of the pirate vessels, scattering them like leaves in a storm. As the last pirate ship fled, a transmission came through on their comm system. A face appeared on the screen. A face that looked remarkably like Zara's, but older, wiser. "This is Admiral Cora of the Nexian Expeditionary Fleet. Identify yourselves." Elena glanced at Zara, seeing the shock and hope warring on the young alien's face. She stepped forward, squaring her shoulders. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth ship Horizon. We have a member of your species aboard, one who was left behind during the evacuation of Nexus 9. The Admiral's eyes widened as Zara stepped into view. "Impossible," she breathed. "How did you survive?" Over the next few hours, as the Horizon docked with the Nexian flagship, stories were exchanged. The Nexians had returned, racked with guilt over those they had left behind, hoping against hope to find survivors. They had picked up the Horizon's enhanced distress call and raced to investigate Zara's survival, and the tale of how the humans had risked everything to save her moved the Nexian leadership deeply. It forced them to confront the flaws in their society that had led them to abandon their most vulnerable in the first place. As discussions turned to the future, it became clear that this chance encounter would change the course of history for both species. The Nexians offered to share their advanced technology, including the matter synthesizer, in gratitude for the rescue of one of their own. In return, humanity would help them find a new home world and teach them the value of compassion and leaving no one behind. Zara found herself at the center of it all, a living bridge between two species. As she stood on the observation deck of the Nexian flagship, watching the last remnants of her birth world fade away in the distance, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Elena smiling at her. "So," the human captain said, "ready for your next adventure?" Zara looked out at the star-filled expanse before them, then back at the human who had saved her life and given her a new purpose. She smiled, her bioluminescence glowing bright with excitement. "Yes," she said, "I think I am." As the fleet set course for Earth, carrying with it the seeds of a new alliance, Zara realized that her greatest weakness, the thing that had caused her to be abandoned, had become her greatest strength. It was her struggle her resilience in the face of adversity that had prepared her for this moment. She had been left to perish among monsters, but instead, she had found friendship, purpose, and hope. And now, standing at the threshold of a new era for both her people and humanity, Zara knew that the greatest adventures and the greatest challenges still lay ahead. The stars streaked by outside the window, each one a promise of new worlds to explore and new wonders to discover. For Zara, for the crew of the Horizon, and for both their species, this was not an end, but a beginning. A new chapter in the grand cosmic story, written in the language of compassion, courage, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the face of impossible odds. The monsters were behind them now. The future, bright with possibility, beckoned.